guys, looking at on the west side, we got some problems with the stone tree. We'll go through that.
All right, come back one meeting and start getting this stuff.
Yeah. And this, I just got this morning,
Okay,
so that's all last minute stuff.
all right, you can, fill
I did
in
give
with
you
the-
the thumb drive.
Yeah.
What you passing now?
This is the,
Yeah,
Okay. I got
I've
it.
got an extra one, so it don't really matter.
Miss Charlotte, you gonna break this?
I will.
Everybody's situated. Chief, do the pledge. All right, guys, before we get started, let's, ask Miss Charlotte to pray for us and Chief to, lead us in the pledge.
Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your mercy and your goodness. I ask that you be with our commissioners today, that you would lead and guide them in decisions that need to be made for our community. We thank you for just watching over us, keeping us safe, and we pray for our military and the changes in our country. We just ask that you would be with us. For these things we ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Face the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's 12 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is a consent agenda, which is minutes of a regular meeting of January 5th and a special meeting of January 12th. There's one small change in the January 5th, which would be the signature page from Ms. Charlotte to add Mike that's taking minutes.
And that's also on the special meeting
Oh,
of the
that's
12th,
correct.
both
Thank
of
you.
them.
Yeah. So both those are the only minor changes. I hear a motion to approve them. So moved. Motion by Commissioner Lowry, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Langston. Any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. And we're gonna bump our engineer, Mr. Josh Baxley, up so he can take care of us and we'll take care of some other folks. So Josh, come on up and we'll turn it over to you.
All right, I'll run through a quick update. First on the list are the North Stormwater grants. I'll just be speaking on the Stormwater Master Plan since we have the other grant right now on hold until we finish that. Our goal is, and I don't see any reason why we won't meet that, our plan is to wrap that Stormwater Master Plan, the report and the recommendations up by the end of the month. And then we can decide, I can cover it with Jim and John and then decide if we want to cover those recommendations and what the potential projects may be in a workshop setting or how we want to do that. But our goal is to try to wrap that up by the end of the month so we can present those options and see what we have. The walking path, Port City Trail, we completed the pre-construction meeting last week. And we expect any time for the contractor to be mobilized and start construction on that project.
Josh, if you will, go over what that grant entails, what are we gonna turn them loose, and what is the plan for the whole thing?
So I don't have in my mind what the exact linear footage of the trail is, but if you're near our office down where the roundabout is,
Right.
you actually have city access drive to the park.
Right.
That walkway actually ties into that city access point, goes near the pavilion, and then goes straight in and ties, well, it'll be new trail now, but goes all the way kind of along the tree line.
Along the bay where the former trail was.
Correct.
Okay.
Follows that tree line, crosses a ditch, goes back in behind the park. We actually are going to culvert the ditch near the TDC, and was previously permitted. So we will cross that ditch and it'll tie all the way into the boat ramp. So that'll be it'll be ribbon curb, and it'll be 57 granite stone. It'll be a 5-foot wide path and 6 inches ribbon curb, so the total width will be 6 foot wide. You'll have 10 benches, and we'll just choose those. I'll work with Jim and John and choose those locations of where the benches will go. There'll be concrete slab and new benches that'll be purchased. And then there, I think, I can't remember if it's 12 lights.
That sounds right.
12 lights through Duke Energy will be put on the path as well. Not on that portion, but on the portion that goes towards the school. So there'll be 12,
20th Street.
right,
Yep.
12 lights as part of that grant as well.
Gotcha.
So
I'm
that's,
more interested in what's gonna happen down around the park.
Right.
North Corner Park, that area. Okay. Sounds like a good plan.
should be pretty simple. Should look real nice.
Look nice, that's the main thing. All right, anybody else got any questions on that? Okey-doke.
The CDBG sewer, so we processed a change order. I spoke with the contractor this morning, they'll be mobilizing next Monday, and they'll start with the CIPP line. And the last time we talked, there were some questions that arose about, how long is this gonna take, how long are customers gonna be out? For the CIPP lining, be very minimal, hour to 2 hours. That'll be a fairly seamless process. The second thing I put in there is a pipe burst, and that's what we authorized the change order for. Just in our brief conversations about the pipe bursting, they'll take that in sections, and he said potentially on time of interrupted service on the starting of the section will be a couple of hours, and at the end of the section could be up to 8 hours. But within whatever section they're working on in the pipe bursting, within a day's time, service will be back and installed. So and I asked him kind of what the plan is there, and he said, which we're a few weeks out from even beginning the pipe bursting, he's gonna break that into sections and work with us and notify the homeowners ahead of time that, hey, on this day, we're gonna be working on this section and expect this type of delay. So he's gonna try to give them a heads up of what they can expect. I don't know that we can do any better than that. I think that's a good plan. I'll make sure that he holds to that. And I was pretty surprised that they can do that and not interrupt any longer than that.
Sounds like a good plan.
So I'll keep you guys updated as that gets closer, but I think what he's doing is starting the CIPP first to give himself time to plan that where he minimally outages everybody with the pipe first. Long Avenue, the bid documents and stuff is pretty much prepared to send out. I know SRF was asking some questions this morning and asked us to revise some cost estimate numbers to use more recent cost estimate data than just our normal estimating to bring our costs down a little bit. Jim, I don't know if you've had any more conversation, but it looks like they're almost to the point where they're gonna say, hey, we're gonna authorize you
I
guys.
think you're right. We got a little movement this morning. We got an email asking a few questions. To me, that was a good sign because we've been asking week after week, we go out to bid. So I think that's positive. Hopefully we'll get the green light soon.
We've had more emails in the last 24 hours than we have in the last 3 weeks, so I think we're moving towards a conclusion here. The NRC, or the city pier, I don't know if any of you guys have been out. In my opinion, it looks great. It looks like those guys are starting to get to where they're getting to a point where they can start wrapping up.
Haven't been on it yet, but, someone mentioned to me, and I don't know if it was in the original bid or not, but in the past, they had some simple wooden benches attached to the structure on a couple on one side, one on one side, one on the other side. John, you recall that?
I do, yes.
If it's not in there, I think it's something our city can do pretty easy.
I don't think it was, but I'll check when I get back, and if it was, I'll speak with the contractor.
Ask them if they can just put a couple of, I don't know if you 2x6s or whatever, but, just with braces, under, really simple.
Okay.
They wouldn't mind doing that, we appreciate it.
Last is the NRCS grant. So we got approval for the extra funds. I've sent the advertisement in. As soon as we're able to run the advertisement, we'll be on the 30-day timeline for a bid out on that job, select a contractor, and start the process. So all we're waiting on is a 30-day timeline for the bid to run.
Sounds good.
But that's all I've got on my list.
Anybody? Got any questions? All right, buddy, let's get that Long Avenue thing. Keep lines
Thank you.
open.
Thank you.
All righty, we got Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Clint, you ready?
Yes, I am, Mayor. We have several things on the agenda today. The first thing I'd like to discuss with the board is draft of ordinance 579. If you remember, that was the ordinance that I put together a draft whereby qualifying for the election, petition, and opposed to qualifying fee. And also, I'd like to discuss, I didn't draft an ordinance for this because it would have to be done by referendum with the moving of the election. Last Thursday, I had quite a long meeting with John Hanlon, the supervisor of elections, and his right-hand man, Eugene. And we're discussing it, these two different aspects, the petition qualifying and the moving of the election date. And if you notice, in the draft of the petition qualifying, we put that to take effect in August 1st of this year. So it doesn't have anything to do with this election, so we have some time. He said that the two things are really intertwined. And if we do a petition, we're probably gonna have to move the election because the number of people that are gonna be in the election if we do the petition. He suggested, that since we have time, he would like to have set up a workshop and come in and discuss all these different things with you guys. I don't necessarily think we need a workshop. I think I can just get him in here at a regular meeting. But he's kind of vacillated a little bit. You know, when I first went in there, I thought he was the one who wanted to move it to November. Well, no, he's kind of wants to move it even earlier based on the petition qualifying. So I would suggest that he come in. Things get lost in translation, and I'd like to have him come in here and explain the intricacies of these two things. To be honest.
I mean, here's what I'd like for him to do. He's the guru for elections. Get him to make a suggestion what we should do. I don't want him to give us all these scenarios. He's the expert. Just tell him to give us a suggestion of what he recommends us do. I mean, do you guys think, do you want him to come in and give us all scenarios? I mean,
I think, it just gives an opinion where we should go, move forward with it, you know.
If you guys have questions, then, you know what I mean, it might be good to have him give that opinion sitting right here.
I mean, I don't have a problem with him coming, but I'd rather him give me your expert opinion on the easiest way for us to make this change. So, I don't think we need to have a big workshop, just
I don't necessarily need a
Should be a-
workshop either. I think.
5 or 10 minute discussion at the most, I would think.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I think
I mean, you talked to him, this is the second or third time.
second or third time I've had this discussion with him.
And
We kind of vacillates every time. I'm having a hard time really kind of pinning it down.
Yeah.
I think him being here, answering any of your questions, I think would be the best way to move forward.
Jim, could you ask him or put him on the agenda for our next meeting? And, then we'll, of course, Clint, you talk to him and tell him we'd like for him to be here and just answer a few
And
questions.
basically, I believe the thing that really needs to be discussed, you guys, from my understanding from the board, you guys want to move forward with the petition qualifying aspect as opposed to the fee.
I think we voted on
And,
that.
and so he needs to come in here and say what kind of ramifications of what he believes needs to happen in terms of moving the election date based upon this petition qualifying as opposed to the fee.
Yeah, I mean, if we pass it today, it'll be passed based on that, the beginning of the petition method at a certain date.
We said
Right.
we take effect August 1st, and we haven't voted on it, we haven't necessarily voted on that ordinance yet. We put that up, but it would not take effect, if you did, we put in that it wouldn't take effect until August 1st of this year. So I believe there's time. That wasn't gonna go into effect for this coming election. He came in here and explained his feelings and what his recommendation is. I think it'd be greatly helpful.
Well, if he doesn't show up, then we'll have to.
We just have to make some
we'll have to make a
decisions,
decision.
and I'll give you the best recommendation that I can.
Yeah. We just,
I have one question.
yes, sir, go ahead.
It's my understanding that we would just be adding the option of petitions, but not, stopping or disallowing the payment to
Correct.
qualify, correct?
If you wanted to go ahead and pay, you could go
Right,
ahead
you
and
can still
pay.
do it, yeah.
His concern is, you do that, you're gonna open it up to having way more candidates running, which is going to lead to a runoff election, because no one's gonna get a plurality of 51%. Our charter states that we're supposed to be, election's supposed to be in May, you need to have someone sworn in by June, there's not gonna be enough time, particularly if you need a recount, and then you have to have a runoff. He's concerned about the timing. And he would be a much better person to explain his concerns than me, because he's done it and it kind of just gets lost in translation. I really think he needs to come in and explain
Okay.
his recommendations.
Okay,
I have one thing.
yes, sir.
Don't we still have to, decide how many people supposed to be on the petition?
What you told me was 10%, and would it be 10% from what was the last municipal election, the amount of registered votes? 10%, so just for instance, the last municipal election was 2,600 registered voters in the city limits of Port St. Joe. 10% of that would be 260 signatures.
And that's a lot of signatures.
Yeah.
I mean, so
All we need to do is find out, in his expert opinion, what are the dates of the elections?
And that would have to be by
That's it.
referendum, because the city charter states the election occurs
Right.
in May.
I agree. I think that's all we need from him, is what date would you recommend the elections be held, because it may be runoffs and all.
Correct, and whether you wanted just to move, and what would help in terms of cost, voter turnout, or possibly moving the election to November. That also brings in some problems of how do you transition, how just increase the last term by several months. So there's some confusing aspects.
thought this would be a simple process myself. Thought it was.
I thought at least this part would be.
That's what I thought.
It's a little bit more confusing.
All right.
All right, that's for the petition qualifying thing and moving the election. You should have had, before you in the packet, ordinance number 580. That's the commissioner's lengths of terms. That has to be done by a referendum, and we have an ordinance asking it to be placed on the ballot in the event that there is a contested election coming up here in May. And for it to take place, the next, to go into place for the next election after that. That's how it's worked.
Right. So if we actually have an actual election in May, then
That
this would
referendum,
be on that.
if you guys agree,
Yeah.
if you guys vote to accept.
Right. Okay.
And I would request, if it's so desired, for first reading and a request to advertise.
Okay.
And I want to clarify one thing. You said it would go into effect on the next election. So if we had an election contested in May, and this was on the ballot, and it was approved by the voters, it would have no impact on that election in May, correct?
That person who won that election in May would still have a 2-year term.
Okay.
And it would be the next election after that,
It would be
whoever
a
was
4-year.
elected would have a 4-year term.
Yeah, that's the way I remember we discussed
2022
it.
would start it.
Would start, if it is approved by the voters, which the last 2 times that this went up, it was defeated.
Right.
Okay, everybody's got the ordinance in front of them, and I'll entertain a motion for first reading and request to advertise. Okay, motion by Commissioner Langston, is there a second?
Are we on ordinance 580?
80, yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
second.
sir. Length of terms from 2 to 4 years.
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Hopper. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. All righty.
Ordinance number 580, ordinance of the city of Port St. Joe, Florida, providing for a ballot referendum on amending Article 2, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Port St. Joe by extending the length of the term of the mayor, commissioner, and city commissioners from 2 to 4 years, providing for repeal of ordinance in conflict therewith, providing for an effective date.
All righty. Move on to our vote round.
You should have in front of you via handout, the revised ordinance number 581, which deals with providing the penalty for failure to pay the boat ramp launch fee at Frank Bay Park.
I don't think we have.
It should be on your desk, man. You can have a copy of it.
Now I got a whole stack. It's relatively the same ordinance that I presented to you before, except for I refined a few things and added just some boilerplate information with regards to how it's going to be enforced. And as you're aware, you stated before that you'd like a penalty of $150 for non-payment of the fee. It will be enforced through the Port St. Joe City Police Department and then through the clerk of court via Florida Statute 28.2402.
Okay,
If you so desire, make a motion for first reading and request advertising.
all right, folks. We beat it around quite a bit. Any questions about what we talked about previously or what's presented in front of us today, which is really nothing different than what we've already discussed? We need to move on and get this boat ramp thing going, and which will help us in the future for improvement and so forth. So I'll entertain a motion.
So
Ordinance 581, first reading, request to advertise. Commissioner Lowry, did I?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Lowry made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I have 2 seconds. So Commissioner Hoffman, to my right. Okay. First, motion to, first reading and request to advertise. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion, anybody? Any more discussion? Or, I mean, we can discuss a little bit, or I can, or anybody can for that matter, how we want to move forward. The whole purpose of this is to move forward to improve our boat ramp, make sure our out-of-county residents are paying their fair share. And we've got to move ahead with advertising for our permit, our stickers. And March will be here before we know it, so we've really got to ramp that up. So, gentlemen, Ms. Charlotte, y'all will move on that. Tell them to get back ordinance. May want to copy ordinance to our website and let folks know that we're serious about folks paying when they show up down there. So anyway, while we're on it, I thought I'd better throw that out. Any further discussion, anybody? All in favor, aye. Aye. Same sign, motion passed 4-0.
Ordinance number 581, an ordinance of the city of Port St. Joe, Florida, setting forth a monetary fine / penalty for failure to pay the boat launch fee for using the boat ramp at Frank Bay Park, providing for repeal of all ordinance in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
And also on that, since it's now only the first reading, we'll have another reading and adoption, but at that time, we can go ahead and put the sign up that lets people know there will be a fine fine and so forth if they don't pay.
Pursuant to what ordinance?
Correct, yeah. Okay, let's go to the next.
The next item for your consideration is ordinance 583. These deal with floodplain amendments. I wasn't here at the time, but apparently in February of 2019, a couple of years ago, there was an emergency ordinance, I believe it was 551, if I'm not mistaken, that dealt with floodplain stuff. Jim might be a little bit more able to tell you what's going on right now.
After Hurricane Michael, as you know, everything changed with floodplain management. We were already working on some maps and we were back and forth as to adoption of maps. But as of May, now that we have seen what Hurricane Michael can do, floodplain maps have been adopted by FEMA, we have them under an ordinance. So now we have to update our current ordinance to reflect that they have been passed by the feds and the state of Florida, and we also have to follow their new requirements if we want to remain part of the federal flood insurance program. So basically, we got a notice last week that says, City of Port St. Joe, you need to pass this ordinance, or we're gonna send you a notice saying you're not in compliance. If we wanna make sure that give our citizens insurance for that are in the flood zone, we've got to pass it.
There's a deadline of March 29th.
And
March 9th.
I would assume that the county probably got the same boilerplate language, that they have to comply.
I would assume that every city and every municipality and every county in the state of Florida that wants to be part of the floodplain management program, be part of insurance and FEMA, is gonna follow the same thing.
And the biggest change I saw in here, and there were quite a few of them, but the biggest change I saw were accessory buildings. Is that the right word?
Accessory buildings and mobile homes / modular homes, making sure that they meet the foundation plans.
Yeah,
That was
the
the biggest
foundation
thing I
for
saw.
mobile home modular or poured slab, no piers, and accessory buildings, 600 square feet maximum for an accessory building. And then we don't currently have a ordinance requiring a permit for fence, but they talked about fencing too, about having a fence that water would go through and debris wouldn't get hung in there and that type of thing. So there are quite a few things that haven't been there before. So, I mean, it's something we've got to do if we want to get help from FEMA in the future. Everybody kind of had a chance to look over that, and understand what we're looking at, and because I believe what's gonna happen is once, this passes and the building department gets these stricter guidelines, then we're probably gonna start getting a few more calls because somebody can't get a permit because of something that, so kind of be aware of that. Okay, I will entertain a motion for first reading and request to advertise ordinance 583 floodplain amendments.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hoffman, I have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Langston. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 4-0.
Ordinance number 583, an ordinance by the Board of City Commissioners of the City of Port St. Joe repealing emergency ordinance number 551, floodplain management and minimum base flood elevations, adopted February 5th, 2019, amending the City of Port St. Joe Code of Ordinances to update the date of the flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps, to specify elevation of manufactured homes in flood hazard areas, to provide criteria for accessory structures in flood hazard areas, providing for applicability, repealer, severability, and effective date.
All right, one more thing, or you can have more than one, but anyway, one more.
This should be it. There was a car accident that ended up damaging one of our fire hydrants, and it cost us approximately $2,500 to fix that. One particular individual was obviously at fault. His insurance, after paying the other driver involved in that accident, didn't have anything left. I sent him a letter, basically demanding payment of the $2,500. Back in, I believe, the end of November or early December, I gave him till the end of 2020, December 31st, to pay that money, or we would go forward and avail ourselves of any legal means in the effort to collect that. That letter got sent back to me, so I actually ended up going to the gentleman's house and hand delivering it to him. So I know for a fact he got it. The time has expired. I've not heard anything from him. I'm basically asking permission of the board to go ahead and pursue that case. It'd be a small claims court case. The filing fee would be roughly about $200, and it would cost $40 to get him served. And that's basically it. I'm asking permission to pursue the case. It seems like a slam dunk. We will get a judgment. I haven't looked into possibilities of collecting it, but my recommendation is we move forward with that case.
Well, we need to go by your recommendation. If you think at the end result, we'll get our money.
I think we will.
Okay. All righty. We'll need a motion for him to go forward to try to recoup damages from car accident and city.
Damage to fire hydrant.
Yeah, city property.
What have we done in the past?
We haven't had too many, but most of the time the insurance covers those costs in the past. This is the first time we've had to take it to this point. We've had success in the past with the auto insurance.
Yeah, that's the part that's
He had the
confusing.
minimal property damage in his insurance policy, which was exhausted by paying the other driver.
Should we be suing the insurance company?
No. We would sue him. Now his insurance company may have the duty to defend him in the case, and we might be able to squeeze some money out of them just simply because they don't want to pay for that. But, no, you don't go after the insurance. You have to go after it.
What's the pleasure of the board? Y'all wanna go after it or let it go? Need a motion for him to move forward.
I just think if we're gonna go after it, then we're gonna have to agree that we're gonna go after all non-payments to the city and not, that's, I don't have a problem with going and seeking payment, but I think we're gonna have to be fair across the board and handle each case in the future like that.
Well, it's always good to be consistent. A lot of the time, these cases have different facts and different scenarios, and you might have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
I've seen cases where we have insurance, where our insured would, go after, another insurance company in one of these type of cases.
I think the issue at hand is gonna be our deductible. Our deductible right off the bat's gonna be $5,000, so I think it's beyond that. And so it would cost us more to pay our insurance company to get involved, I think, because it's not that much.
I'd say it's liability, even a liability claim that's $5,000.
We can call and find out, I'm not sure. But I think most of the time whenever something like this, we want them to help us with it. We can find out, I'm not sure.
If that's the pleasure of the board, then we can table it until the next meeting, and Jim, if y'all would find out my insurance company, if we can, if our umbrella policies cover that without,
Yeah, that's what I would do. I'd recommend trying to go that route, and then they can touch base with their insurance company.
Yeah.
They can work together, maybe.
We'll see what ours does, and then we'll go from there. Okay, is that good for everybody? Okay.
That's it.
Anything else? Okay, all righty. Old business, Jim?
Yes, sir, Mayor. It's the first time in reference to COVID-19. We did have a special meeting last week. We made some decisions and we tabled some for further discussion today. Currently, we have not been adding any additional renters onto our facilities. What we're looking at today is a couple things we need to make decisions on. Do we want to keep it closed? Do we want to move forward with opening it back up for rentals? We also have several special events that are going to plan to take place in the next couple of months, some indoors, some outdoors. Today I got a call about prom being used in the Centennial Building on April the 10th. Blues on the Lot, April the 10th. We have a special election that's coming up in the Centennial Building that I've heard this past week, this March the 2nd, for the school board referendum. We also have Mardi Gras Parade next month, Arts Festival in March. So as you can see, these are all things that just came to us in the last week since we have met that we need some direction on how we're going to handle these things.
Well, first thing, let's don't jump to something else. Our special meeting had to do with our city building.
Indoor events.
Events on that. And I think what we decided to do was put an addendum on our application process for any city building and put an addendum on that if the positivity rate was X percent the 2 weeks prior to that event, then we wouldn't be able to let them have it. Is that what everybody remembers?
I believe you said that, instead of coming up with like a 15% or 20%,
Right.
we would
Talk
put in
to
there
the health
that,
department.
you're right, whatever the health department recommended that percentage to be at.
Correct.
That's what we would, go by.
And the email we got from Sarah Carranto said 10%. Said anything, she didn't, that was a response to what we met about last week, which said that they didn't want to do anything. Jim, I don't remember how it wasn't in the
I think
minutes,
basically
but
it
how
said-
it's worded, but basically they said, we want to keep it at 10%.
They would like to see 10%. I don't think you're gonna get anybody that's gonna give you a recommendation from a state agency as to what number of closure facilities, but they would like, from what we understand, they would like to see a number.
That's what was in the email. So we've got to, we need to make a decision on our buildings, and then we can make a decision on the
Special
outdoor events, which that's just another discussion. So, I mean, I'd like to see it, anything over 10% prior to 2 weeks, any gatherings over 10, 15 people, whatever at one time CDC recommended, and that's what we do. But up to the will of the board, and what you guys think we should do. If you don't think we need to worry about it, we won't. But, I mean, we're gonna worry about it, but, we're gonna let them be open, and we need to let folks know.
Well, I have said for the last year that I'm not going to take recommendations and experts off of social media, mainly Facebook, and that I'm gonna follow the guidance from the CDC, State Health Department, and our local county health department. And I will still support that idea. I'm not crazy about 10%. I would have rather picked something higher, but I'm not gonna go back on what I've been saying for months and months. So if the health department feels that we shouldn't have groups of large numbers inside a building with 10%, then I would support that. Now that's inside a building. I think it's another conversation about outdoors.
All right, okay. Further discussion? Mr. Langston, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, 10%, that's kind of low, but, we're talking about city facilities, and I think that we have to be responsible, and reliable, so that when somebody uses it, when we know that, they can be transmitting the disease or infecting someone, and they go out and out to the community. I think that 10% is low, but, I agree with, city buildings being closed, until if the numbers get that low. I mean,
Right, over that amount. Larry got the comment.
I don't think the health department is necessarily, I mean, in Sarah's email, I believe it just said we need to target, our target is keeping, getting us at 10% or lower, I don't think they gave us any kind of recommendation on closing buildings or anything like that, no. So it's just gonna be hard for me to support a 10% number, I mean, that's just.
Yeah, and the
I mean,
way
we're-
you explain it, I agree that it may not be just like, hey, you gotta close everything at 10%. So I still think we could go at a higher percentage and still be following the direction of the local health department. If we closed it at 15%, at least we'd be moving towards getting to 10%. Because right now, we're at 19, we were at 20, so.
And then if, like prom, for example, Jim mentioned, they're calling about, that's a huge event, that happens there every year. What do you do?
Yep, and it's
Tough decision.
normally in April, I
April the
believe.
10th.
Huh?
April the 10th.
And we're in January, well, we could very well be. But I mean, if we're at 25% in April, I'd hate to have 200 people inside a building together.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, because these kids, it's already proven that most of the time, they're not showing any symptoms. But they may be infecting each other, and then, like Ms. Langston said, come out and infect us, so anybody wanna, make a motion and throw a percent, make that an addendum to our application process. I mean, 15% is not far from 19, to tell you the truth, so, I mean, we can beat it around, we can go in between it, we can say 12, or we could go to 15, I don't know. But I do think we need to do one or the other, either not do anything, or we need to have percent to help our city staff, tell people that that's what we plan.
I'll say this, I'm not gonna make a motion, right now,
Okay.
I'm just not comfortable with a number again.
Right.
Just because, I mean, I feel like there's a possibility we might backtrack too because of what we might hear from the public.
Yeah, I know the public's gonna wanna have the parties, we're gonna hear that, I understand that. We need to do something to help these guys unless the board would say, look, we're working on making a motion that's gonna cause you to have to cancel your event if the positivity rate's over a certain amount. The city staff certainly needs to let these folks know what he's gotten calls on just today or it had to be today. So,
There's people planning weddings months out.
yeah,
I know for a fact, I have friends that are looking at the possibility of renting the Centennial Building. And if we don't make some kind of understanding based on a number, they're still gonna be in limbo,
yeah,
That's right.
Where they have cost involved too. You got
Right.
invitations to wedding planners, to photographers, the whole bit has to be lined up for these big events.
Yeah, what we'll be doing is we'll be months in advance, we're gonna have those same people like we had, the other day. And we understood, you just can't pull the rug out from under the people that are that far in the planning. And that's why we permitted 2 weddings and a birthday party. I mean, I would be happy, but I'd be comfortable in saying, anytime it goes above 18%, I don't think you're gonna have a whole lot of people push back at the numbers being 19, 20, and into the 20s. It'd be a start. And I mean, it's not really where I think we should be, but I'd be willing to give a little to at least have a number.
I'm not sure I support 18%, but I could say we'll put it off another week and instruct staff to tell anyone that would like to reserve any of our city buildings, that there's a possibility of something will be passed that would cause them to have to cancel their event. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Or there's something that out there that we can't sit up here and say, if positivity rate's 25% in St. Joe, personally, I couldn't sit out here and say, well, y'all go ahead and have this party.
Well, we closed all the buildings in the
Right now, it's
past.
currently closed. Right now, we're not taking any more bookings. We allow what we have. So as it is right now, we're not putting anything on the books. So we just have to.
What percentage, do you recall what percentage we had reached when we closed City Hall and we closed the other buildings?
Wasn't it because of the state mandate? Wasn't it because of the state guidance?
Yeah, that became
Is that
down
what
from
it
That was the state guidance.
So right now, you're under CDC guidelines on there, but everything else, my understanding, is pretty much open in the state, so that's what
Yeah, he had those phases where we,
Right.
we did, yes.
Yeah, and I went through that. I had a wedding scheduled and didn't know 2 weeks before whether we'd be able to use the Centennial Building. We were able to switch to Windmark, but they wouldn't rent it until 2 weeks before the event, so
We were
I
under
was in that
state,
boat.
Right, the state wouldn't allow us to open up any large facilities. Do you remember how then it went to, I think, 25% and then 50%, and now everything pretty much is open? But that's how we got it.
so right now, based on our motion last, on the 12th, was no more reservations at the current time.
Correct.
So we can just wait till the next meeting.
Until we made a decision.
Yeah, just let those people know that we're working on something and hopefully things gonna go down, but
Gotta make our own story.
I think we need to be focusing on a number, a percentage. Because if it's over 25%, I can't vote to let people, rent a facility and be liable. So we really need to focus on the percentage and go from there. I know we need to do our research, and come up with something before we make it.
Yeah, that'll be February 2nd. February 2nd, so
All right.
put it back on there. And, while you're on there, I will say, last week, the, Health Department, Pancare Hospital were cooperating on the vaccine. Hospital took over Centennial Building. I went by there from the time somebody walked in the door till the time they got their shot was no more than 5 minutes. Of course, they had to sit there 15 minutes, but they were telling me all the vaccine they have is 300. She said they could give up to 500 a day, and that'd be fantastic. I talked to her this morning. Unfortunately, nobody in the county's gotten another allotment this week so far. So we have no vaccine, but they don't come out, let's say, on a Monday or Tuesday. They just somehow, sometime during the week, we're gonna let you, according to the person I talked to, they said that was more of a federal thing than it was a state thing right now. Don't know after tomorrow's inauguration if things gonna open up like they're supposed to, or like said was gonna happen. But if that's the case, we may end up having some by the end of the week. And the hospital is ready to set back up Centennial and go for them. I mean, it was amazing to me how many they were running through there. So hopefully things will loosen up. We'll get a lot more vaccine this week. everybody that wants to get vaccinated. If they'll finally open it up to anybody under 65, and, you know, the teachers, I thought they should be on top of the list myself, but so far they're not. But, anyway, that's kind of the COVID update right now from everything I've heard.
They're outdoor events.
Okay,
We haven't
outdoor
done
events.
anything- At this point in time, we haven't put any closure on outdoor events, but I have several applications. I have one right here for Blues on a Lot that just got handed to me. We have Mardi Gras parade scheduled for a couple of weeks out, middle of February, Arts Festival in March. And all these people are looking to buy insurance, get prepared, pay big money to get prepared for these events, to set up stages and all these things. I would hate to go and turn these people loose and then the boards would be
Well,
trying to do something different.
My opinion is outdoor events gonna be okay. That's just my opinion. I mean, we had Gust on the coast, we had Christmas on the coast were huge. I mean, there were more people there than there would be for Blues on the Lot or the Arts thing or Mardi Gras thing is not a big deal anyway. It hadn't in the past, but, I wish it would be, but based on the past, it has not been. So, I'm okay with outdoor events. I mean,
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. It'd be hard for us to say no, and we sponsored our own Christmas event. Several hundred people were there, and I think everybody did a great job. So had we canceled the Christmas parade, then it would make sense to cancel others. But
right.
you're right.
Everybody okay with that? Outdoor, still following CDC guidelines, 6 feet, mask. I mean, that's what we recommend. We can't make people do it, but that's, I mean, you can pass that on to the applicants. And I think that's already on our application anyway.
This will
not
be actual,
supposed
this
to
is
be.
actually special events. These are a little different than the rental facilities.
So just pass that along.
Under old business, the last time I had is parcel 04908. This is the lot on the corner of Woodward and 7. We talked about it a few times. We have folks interested in purchasing a lot. So we need to decide if we want to put it up for sale. Staff recommendation, if you do decide to put it up for sale, that we need to get a survey and we need to put an easement in place to get all that drainage. So for the board for discussion if you want to sell it.
All right, what's the thoughts of the board?
I'm fine with keeping it, not selling it.
I'm fine too.
I don't see a need to sell it. I would say no,
Not for sale.
not for sale. And if there comes a time that we need $60,000 or $80,000 or whatever, then we focus on what does the city have that we can liquidate, pay our bills. But currently, I just don't see a need to sell property.
Everybody good with that? Okay.
Next item we have is new business, plat approval request for Magnolia Palms. This has went to the planning board, this past month with a favorable recommendation of moving forward with, approving a plat for 6 lots on Long Avenue. I've got Mr. Grant Rich here today if you have any questions, in reference to this project.
PDRB approved it, what I've heard approved it, based on the, plat meeting all setback requirements of our, LDR.
That is correct, yes, sir. We can blend the regulations, which these would have a 10-foot side, 20-foot front, and 10 feet on the back. And Mr. Rich did give me an updated plat that reflects those numbers on it.
I'm gonna abstain from this vote. I've got a business relationship. All right, so one, I'll entertain a motion to approve the PDRB recommendation for a plat of Magnolia Palms.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second.
I said,
Okay, a motion and a second. Any questions? Anybody? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed 3-0 with one abstention.
Commissioner Lowry, I have the form you'll need to complete today.
The next item is planning services agreement. This is actually for Mr. Ray Greer, who's been handling our planning for the last couple of years. His current, contract for the planning services for 1 year. It was up. Staff recommendation that why don't we look at 3 years on this? We know we've got so much going on in our town, that we need his services on these larger projects, which we have a task order for us to discuss next after we move past this, piece of business. The staff recommendation, why don't we go for a 3 year instead of a 1 year rate?
Staff have a good working relationship with Mr. Greer. He's done everything we asked him to do in a timely fashion. So, Mr. Franklin, all right, 3 years. Okay, motion, Commissioner Lowry, second by Commissioner Langston for a planning service agreement of 3 years for Stantec, Raymond Greer. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0.
The next item, we had a discussion a few months back about workforce housing. And the discussion led into looking at the property back behind our city shop. On further review, that piece of property, is currently not in the city, does not have any zoning for us to work with at this point in time. Mr. Greer, we brought him in to take a look at it, to give us some recommendation to how we would move forward if the board wanted to do some type of workforce housing on the property. And the suggestion is that he gave us was at first you need to annex it into the city and give it some zoning. Because the way it sits right now, you're not able to look at it because it's not in the city. So you would have to, if you did anything at all at this point in time, you would have to go to the county to do any kind of development on that property on there. It's not any zoning.
I think it'd
65
be-
acres in the shop.
It's just a perfect city-county cooperation thing. At this juncture, because I know sitting on the EDC board, that's been every EDC meeting they talk about, we need workforce housing. We've got property, it could be a win-win for everybody, so, I certainly hope the board would, consider, that task order for Mr. Greer.
I'm fine with moving forward.
Okay. Make a motion, you want to make a motion, by Mr. Lowry made a motion to, task order Mr. Greer to, do all the things we need to do to get that property in the city and look at, get some workforce housing out there. The amount was $6,700, so I got a motion, I just need a second.
That's it.
Second by Mr. Langston. Everybody understand, what we're tasking him to do and ready to go? Okay, all in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0.
The next item, we did open up bids on Friday, so we just got those in, so we gave those a handout for the tennis/pickleball resurfacing. This would be to cover your tennis court that you just acquired for lease, adjacent to the school, and for the pickleball court down at Freight Pay Park. There's one item in there we looked at on there was the
bond.
Bond on there. It did not include the bond on this low rate, on the lowest bid, but if the board's okay with that not being bonded, I believe if you look at the numbers on there, even if you require the bond on there, it's still gonna be low bid by a substantial amount.
Jim, I didn't get a handout. What's the price?
Price is $26,181. The next lowest jumps up to $36,104. So did everybody else find a handout?
Yeah.
And this price would be to resurface both locations?
It would be to resurface the 2 tennis courts at Lamar Faison and replace the nets. And then convert the 1 court at Frank Pate to 4 pickleballs, removing the existing tennis nets and posts and putting in 4 permanent courts for pickleball with the nets and posts.
And striping, of course.
And striping, resurfacing and striping
And
for
the-
pickleball only.
The tennis court will be striped tennis only.
Only, tennis only.
Okay.
That's correct.
I was pretty pleasantly surprised. They was approved. Couldn't believe we
Yeah.
could get all
And-
that and the permanent
and
post and all that.
And when we were getting written quotes, he was consistent lower when we were getting written quotes from this
Okay.
gentleman anyway.
All right. Well, entertain a motion for low bid on tennis courts and pickleball resurface. Motion by Commissioner Langston, there's a second.
Second.
There's a second by Commissioner Hoffman. We got the money out, son.
We do, yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
American
Opposed,
Tennis
same sign.
Courts.
Motion passed 4-0. Can't believe we're finally going to get this done.
The next item is reference to our meeting in March. As we have so much development going on, we have a lot of ads that's gotta be put in the paper. I'm gonna talk to the board about our March meeting. It does fall right in the middle of spring break, and traditionally we have families traveling, and we don't have everybody here. So if you want to, we can move that meeting to the following week, keep it the same, whatever wishes with the board. But our thinking was if we go ahead and decide that way, we can make sure, me and Ms. Pierce have several ads that's gotta be done this week, and I wanna make sure that we know our name.
Not only that, with our grants and those type of things, I sure think we need to have 2 meetings a month for a while till we get all those grants going and see where we are there. And while I'm on that, I've asked Jim, just like we've got our current city project list, I'd like to have a current grant list, grant application list, or whatever, in our agenda every week, so it kind of keeps those grants in front of us. If we need to go out and politic any or something, we can, it just keeps us fresh on everything we got going on. So, anyway, he's gonna do that for us.
Yeah, I'm fine moving that meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 5 Tuesdays that month.
Yeah, it is, so it kind of works out that it spreads it out too,
Yeah.
anyway.
So we moved to the 23rd, is that what we're
That
saying?
would, that's what we're talking about, yes.
I'm good with it.
Need a motion?
Yes, sir, because it is
Okay.
your meeting.
I'll need a motion to move, the, second meeting in March from the 16th to the 23rd of March.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Lowry made the motion, there's a second. Second, Commissioner Langston, all in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. All right, March 23rd.
Last thing I had, Mayor, was just take a look at the project list on there. We need to, keep in front of us. Projects that we wanna make sure get done, we wanna make sure they get done, and look at things on there that we may or may not wanna do in the next couple of years on there that are just on the list as place markers.
Yeah, would everybody take a look at that? You see something on there that you know is really not realistic for us to, think about for the next several years, just mention it to Jim, let him take it off, and then, we can maybe add something that would be a little more realistic as far as getting something done quick. Okay, any questions about city project list? All right, Mr. Grant?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had 2 items on the agenda, actually. The first one being permission to purchase a back jet, which is a jetter on state contract. And the second being two lawnmowers.
Okay, the back jet was budgeted before, for this year's
Yes,
budget.
both.
Okay. All right, there a motion to, allow the purchase of the back jet for public works.
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner Hoffman, there's a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Lowry, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. Okay, now, he needs to request, purchase of Hustler lawnmower. Everybody saw that, saw the amounts. So the motion is, Commissioner Lowry made the motion, there's a second. Second, Commissioner Langston, all in favor, aye. Motion passed 4-0.
All I have, Mayor, unless there's questions for me.
Anything, for John on any of our public works projects going on? Staffing levels okay?
Well, we've advertised, Ms. Charlotte was out last week, so her and I need to get together, hopefully it'll be into this week, and then I can bring our staff levels
John, have you heard any new updates on the fabricating those bridges?
For February, that's where we're at.
I think that's gonna be a nice addition, especially the golf cart one on Boulevard. I think that'll be well received.
And I've got one question based on what you just said about these positions. When a department has vacancies, the payroll, obviously, to pay those vacancies was given to each department. So how are we handling when we have vacancies? Does the money still go to the department, or does the city keep the money because of the vacancies?
The money stays in our operating account. It's just less expenses. You always figure when we put a budget together, you're only going to spend 90% of the budget. And sometimes with salaries, that can be more. We had the same situation in the police department where we had a position open and we didn't fill it for some time. That money just stays in our operating account. It's there for them when they need it, but it's just a reserve.
We don't take it away from them.
No.
Right.
Unless the board actually eliminates the position on there, it stays with that position in there. So if there's a change in a new position or taking away a position, that's.
Oh, also while John's up there too, our patches on Garrison Avenue, you'll probably see that start. The 10 of them anyway. They'll have to do point repairs from others, but the 10 that are already identified that we don't have to do point repairs will be happening shortly.
Sure.
Are you looking at that one on First Street at all, or what do we decide about, other than it's horrible?
Over by the manhole?
I
Yeah,
guess.
that's, we have to repair the manhole first. I mean, we've talked about that. We put that on our CDBG-DR grant in the entire area, First Street. So, we're really right now just seeing what comes available first. Hopefully that money comes and we can have it all fixed, because it's a lot more than just that manhole.
Right, yeah.
We got a Scott grant for paving that street.
That's correct. And, our target is to have all of that infrastructure done before we pave it. If we don't, then.
Right,
It's
fall in
gonna
again.
wait up.
That's fine. Okay. Any other questions for John? Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I don't have anything for today, but I have some questions.
Anybody? You got clarifiers going on and filters going on, right?
Yes, sir, the contract is supposed to mobilize next week.
Okay, all right. Okay, we got Kevin back, all well and wanting money. Come on up.
Sorry about the last minute, stuff. I got a quote from Evokia. Evokia is the people that make the filters. That's why you guys got the handout. It's a sole source. I don't have a sole source letter yet, but I'll get it. These are the parts that keep us from running the #1 filter. We just got it all tore down. Evokia came in last week while I was out and spec'd everything out. We don't have any more adjustment room, so that's why there's a list of parts. Now, everything they spec'd out isn't everything we need. Some of this stuff I'd like to postpone. That's why I've got a little, down at the bottom, I quoted a $17,387 list of parts.
Right.
And for me, that's a must-have to put this filter back together. Where we sit now, we can run at half throttle. We can valve one filter out, run half throttle, but it takes us 16 hours to get out what we would get out in 8 hours if we do that. And we'd have to run 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for maintenance, just to maintain our level. We've got a little over 1.5 feet, and that's why I didn't want to postpone this discussion. I'm sorry it's all last minute, but it's 2 to 3 weeks out for parts. So I can't get parts for another 2 to 3 weeks. We can do the work. Mark, that's why we hired Mark. He's a mechanic, so he's actually a very good mechanic. So we can get in and replace all this stuff without having to pay them the $36,000 for labor. But I'd like to get started on it as soon as possible. I'll get parts ordered and get that put back together. So I'm not running, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to maintain.
So the filters are, to draw down lagoon and
Yes.
filter it to the spray fields?
Yes, sir.
That's, okay. That's
So,
clear in my mind, what we
and Evokia came in, Evokia is the people that make the filters. They came in, at no cost to go through our filters to see if we, are on track with what we think we need. They had a few extra things that I'm gonna postpone for a couple of years because we just rebuilt a couple of pieces. But they did found a leak that I was been looking for months and couldn't find it. And they found a seal that's non-seal that let a little bit of trash come through the filter, which is TSS for us. So Joe headed this up while I was out, and Joe did a good job as far as getting everybody in and going through the process, going through the manuals. So that's all been done. What I was looking at is we got an expense that I didn't think about the first thing. I didn't see this coming. I didn't see the wheels, the trucks going out and stainless steel. But the way I was thinking about where the money's going to come from is we've got a well abandonment that's sitting on the property that I've asked for 20 grand. I've got that in the budget. And what I'd like to do is just postpone the well abandonment for another year. So I'm still within budget of, where I'm, for the wastewater. So this is.
So that, moving that abandonment for next year, is not gonna hurt us with DEP or anything like that.
No.
Actually, we could not abandon it forever.
It's correct. We didn't leak, that well didn't leak during the hurricane, and it worried me then that it might, but the well casing is still intact. So that didn't put any salt water down in the aquifer, which is our liability. That's where we're liable is, let that get in the aquifer. And about the only time that happens during a hurricane. We had one, it didn't leak, but it's still worrisome on my part until we properly abandon it. I think we're gonna have to roll the dice and put it off another year. That's.
So
my
none of
thoughts.
this was in your budget.
These parts are not, they're not in my budget. We've had clarifiers went down, or classifier went down, we've had different things. I've pretty much eaten up my repair already this year. Some of that stuff is a lot more expensive than anticipated. So I'm gonna have to steal from another piece of my budget, which is why I went ahead and printed out that section of my budget, that's on the second piece. That's why I figured it may be easier for you guys to see, what I've got left and know what I'm thinking as far as where, get the money from.
So the 17,000 that says must have, you're gonna steal that from the 20,000 that you have on that other project you want to.
Right, correct.
So you're really not asking for any money.
I'm not asking for any additional money, but if you guys wanted to know why I'm not doing abandonment this year,
Yeah.
it's because I would like to postpone it for a year, because I think this is a lot higher priority.
Well, I'd like to congratulate you for finding the $90 that was in-house. I mean, the fact that you found the $90, you had me so. Well, this goes back to what I've mentioned a couple times. I'll say it again, but I don't even think you should have had to come before the commission to work within the budget. But that's just the way I
I
think.
appreciate you keeping us informed, because I just think it's important to know what's going on everywhere we can. So I agree with Commissioner Hoffman also.
It's a change from what I presented, that's why, I wrote
Right,
it.
I get it.
And I didn't have a chance to talk to Jim, I just got this morning, so, I just figured I'd just throw it out there, let everybody know what I'm thinking, and that way we all know.
So you've got a sole source, so we don't have to go out to bid.
We don't have to go up to bid, it's the only people we get parts from.
Just do what you have to do.
We still got a foot and 10 inches or so of the pond left, which is quite a bit of room, but it's to where I'm pushing to get everything put back together. We have to run on half filter for a while, or one filter out of two, and half thought, we'll just do it. We'll just move our staffing out, and I'll bring somebody in early try to postpone that if I can get all this done. That way we can run as we normally do, and we don't have to stretch people out. That's my thought, in case you guys have a question.
I think that's great. Anybody got any more questions? All right, Kevin, thanks, sir.
Mayor, we do need a motion, this is so, for purpose above our bid threshold. So what we actually need from the board is a motion to purchase $17,387 worth of parts from Mobility as a sole.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion, there's a second, Mr. Langston for, wastewater treatment to, purchase $17,387 worth of parts. All in favor, aye? Aye. Those same sign, motion passed 4-0. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, Mr. Mike.
We have contacted Ventec and discussed the awarding of the pay station with them, but we need to clarify where we're going to place that pay station at the boat ramp so that John and I can then figure out what we have to do to get power there and to be prepped for them to deliver a station to us. So we need to know where we're going to put that station in order to prep and prepare and plan with Ventec.
I went down with Jim, look at the sites that were presented at the last meeting. I saw where the easiest site was, but I saw it's not the most convenient. I feel like it just needs to go right where the pay box is now, with the pedestal. Even that pay box, you'd have to have a Hurricane Michael to get water in it. I don't think that's a big issue, and as much as we're stressing everything down there now, I think it just needs to be as convenient as possible. That's just my 2 cents worth.
But let's discuss the convenience part. I'm curious as to why it's more convenient where the one is now versus if we put it along where the staging department would be or the staging lane would be.
Just people, well, my own personal opinion, I guess, as well as talking to some other folks that use ramps around, and specifically Dr. Mays. I asked him what he thought, where he thought it should be. Met him down there, and he just felt like it. Because people are, you're backing in, and you got somebody holding the rope and somebody in the truck. Everybody's right there on top of it. You can't say, well, I didn't see it. You know, and I guess that's just my thought.
Yeah, and at some point, if you're getting on the boat, somebody's gonna pass that.
Yeah, you can pass it going in or out, so I forgot, you can't forget if it's staring you right there in the face and you're standing there by your boat.
But I do see what you're saying at the staging area too. They could go ahead and prepay it, put it on their dash there.
They could,
So,
yeah, I mean, there's
I think when
thoughts on both.
if it's a busy day,
yeah.
I lean towards the staging area.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I sit here and start thinking about, if it's not busy, you could very well drive right by it. You know, there's not a line, so, yeah, you're probably right. If they have no excuse, busy or not, you gotta walk by it if it's at the end of the dock.
Iron Ranger staring you in the face.
Yeah. Maybe they won't destroy it as quick as they have destroyed the other one.
Well,
You got to really put some pipes around it because they
That's what I
continue
would
to back into it.
Put some,
Yeah.
concrete posts around it.
It's gonna have to be. It's amazing how many times they back into the one that's there now.
and also, Mike, if water getting in the guts of the machine is an issue, you could ask the guy if they have different height,
Yeah, we've gotten height specs and there's minimums to comply with ADA compliance. We can only put it so high.
Yeah.
So that the pay box can only be 48 inches where you put your money in, you know. So we've gotten those guidelines from Ventec and
If you stand there next to that pay box now and sight it toward the the dock inside, the water's got to get over that dock, over the docks on each side, which puts it almost, you know, it's, water's got to get pretty high to get in that thing. And nobody, anyway.
Did they go down on the price any?
They did not. They did not adjust the
Because
price. They
we
said it was
agreed to-
included.
No cash.
No cash,
Right,
right, no
yeah.
coins.
They did not amend they did not give us a reduction on that.
You'd think that's would be cheaper.
You didn't do a very good job.
I didn't do a very good,
negotiating.
apparently not.
You needed all.
I didn't do a very good job on that. That was a,
Put him on speakerphone. Okay, I think we're all in agreement.
Okay,
But
well-
we're-
I'd just like to see some posts.
Yeah, we
yeah, John,
definitely,
John and I have discussed the options, and so we'll start working with Ventec to move that forward, give them the purchase order, and John and I will get together and figure out how we get the power in there and lighting and.
We've been actually waiting for this whole thing, because Duke Energy, if you can believe this, Duke Energy's waiting on us to put the light pole up.
Huh.
Which is unusual. Normally, it's the opposite. So
Yeah.
now that we have a good direction, we can put everything at one time. And then
super, wonderful.
We'll get to work on it, yes, sir.
Light also.
Well, when you're thinking about running that power, in the back of your mind, think about eventually where we're gonna run power out to the
To the
gazebo. So let's make enough power going that way.
Well, you know, Duke is gonna put a transformer right there at the boat ramp as well, so we'll have to pull in a transformer. So, I'll talk to Dwayne and see what his recommendations are, you know, with an additional bore shot to get out
Right.
to the peninsula.
Didn't we have a light post at the end of the little rip-rap area going out to the?
Yeah, there was a pole there.
Yeah, I got hit by lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there not a line out there now? What
No,
happened?
no more power, it's all that's gone.
Okay. All right. Okey-doke. Anything, Mike, bring folks up to date on DEO and our 218,000. I got a little excited this morning talking to Mike. He said he actually got a call from those people today, I think.
Right, yes, I did talk to them last Friday and recapped everything that we've done to try to finalize that funding and get them to approve it and move it towards us. They said they would have a meeting to discuss the situation and follow up with me. Surely, I don't know what else we can do, but as soon as I find out, I will lay it on to you and we can hopefully close this thing out.
Yeah, let's hope they'll do it without us having to go the political route. But I'm prepared to do that. He's getting all the ducks on the road in case we have to talk to our representative or senator about putting a little pressure.
I'll follow up with that this week and hopefully get a response from
Thank you,
them.
sir. So I think bottom line is we might be getting closer to getting that 200, 218.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okey-doke, any other for, all right, code enforcement.
Yes, sir, Mayor, we actually have out to bid 2 demolitions that are moving forward, one for Palm Boulevard and one for the corner of Avenue A and MLK. That'll close the end of next week, and he's also scheduling hearing for new cases coming forward. So code enforcement's moving along. Now, we've also too, we did send out letters for our discussion in reference to mobile homes. Not mobile homes, campers that are out, people that are working on their homes. We've got Ms. Beverly Maddox here today that's concerned about when she was actually received a letter. Looking at this, you have a couple of different categories. I think probably what we need to do is we need to have a category for people that's their primary residence, that they're claiming homestead exemption on. You know, recommendation is that why don't we give those folks 6 months to get those houses back in shape, get back into them, because that is their primary residence and they get homestead exemption on. What we had over the holidays, we had an influx of a lot of new campers that showed up for people that are making new purchases on some of these older houses and put them together. I think those are in a different category. Those are not people that's their primary residence, they're people that are coming down working on these houses on the weekends, and the neighbors are not happy to see a camper out there for months on end while they're just barely working on the house. So with that in mind, staff recommendation is that we allow these folks, let's give them 6 months that are currently working on these primary. There's only a few of those. The majority of these are second homes, investment homes that have showed up in the last couple of weeks.
So your recommendation is, one, we voted to didn't really have to vote. We had ordinance on the books that talked about the violators, that if they didn't comply, we'd cut the water off to the primary residence.
That's it.
Where we are now is, and we thought the ordinance was in place that would protect a homestead exemption house of a Fort St. Joe resident. That house was damaged in the storm, and they're trying to get back in their home. That was my understanding. We were trying to help those people get back in their home faster. So your recommendation is for code enforcement to, or do you want us to vote to have a 6 months extension for Fort St. Joe residents who are declaring homestead exemption on their home that they're trying to get back in after Hurricane Ida?
If we could give those folks 6 months, based on an active permit, homestead exemption, yes, sir, I think that's the right thing to do.
I mean, I think that's reasonable.
There's only a few of those, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that would help Ms. Maddox as well, because that is her primary residence right now, that I believe she has it scheduled to get the work and repairs done in the next couple of months.
I mean, I think that was the intent from 2 or 3 years ago, right after Michael, to help folks, not enable folks to come live in a RV down there.
That's it, and all the rest of them, they fall under a different category because it's not their primary
All right, you need a motion to that
residence. Yes, sir,
effect?
that'd be great.
Okay, everybody kind of understand, we got any more discussion on that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, there's a second. Second by Commissioner Langston. Everybody understand the motion? What we're trying to do is help folks get back home that were damaged, that are living in a trailer, if they declare a homestead exemption on their property. Okay? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. All right, I think that's great. Police Department.
I don't have anything unless anybody has any questions.
I've got a request from a property owner, and I think you probably don't know who it is. It's still talking about a four-way stop at 10th Street and Garrison Avenue. So I told him I'd talk to you and talk to the board and see what, folks want to do. You think there's a need for it? I only get one complaint from one person usually, and, I don't.
I would say, just based on the statistics that we got and the historical, as far as crashes or anything there, there's really no safety concern on Garrison Avenue to put up a, four-way stop. I mean, the stats just aren't there. I mean, the same complaint we all get from the same person, and, some of his arguments are, I can't see the safety concern anywhere.
Can you put your new device back up on Garrison Avenue for a few days or a week?
I can when I get back, I sent it back because I was still getting 120, 130 mile an hour birds or whatever they are.
So when you
When I
can,
get it
if
back,
you,
I'll
and
get it
if
back.
you have a place in front of this individual's house.
That's where it was last time.
Okay. So I mean, I just believe we need, the statistics don't lie. If that machine's accurate, then I mean, you're gonna have one every now and then that's gonna speed, but something.
I mean, I've researched, Garrison Avenue has been there a long time, and the only actual fatality that I could find other than that 71 in Garrison was way out in Ward Ridge back in the 80s. And the rest of, we don't even have that many fender benders. We've had one crash on Garrison this year. And as far as I can remember, 6 months into last year, we only had one crash, and it was at 8th and Garrison.
All right.
I just don't believe to upset as many people as we would upset by putting a four-way stop there, we can't justify it.
I got you. I got you. Everybody's heard it. If you hear anything, let us know or let the chief know, and, we'll work with the individual. I told him, and, I mean, he said he'd pay for it and all that. I said, well, we'll bring it up, talk about it. So we'll keep discussing it if we have to.
Yes, sir.
I've always thought that the guidelines were, I know it was discussed once, someone had asked about a four-way around the 800 block of Marvin, and they were informed that they would need to get a letter of support from all of the people, like within a block of that position. And I know when I talked to someone that wanted a four-way on Garrison, I said, well, you gotta do some homework and find out what your neighbors want. And that was the end of it. I don't know if the neighbors were opposed to it, but, and we kind of went that direction when we had the issue come up a few times on 7th Street. If you'll remember, they wanted speed bumps. And we said, well,
They
you
got
gotta
all the
find out
neighbors.
what your neighbors want. And I think that still is the direction I would support when it comes to stop signs. And I told the person on the phone when they discussed the stop sign at a different location on Garrison, that stop signs should not be regulated by politics. And if we start deciding where a stop sign needs to go, it's political. And that's not the way to go. It should be based on scientific data to make our people safer on the road. So I know years back, I don't even know how many years back, there was a four-way put on Long Avenue, and it was all political.
Long intent.
Yes,
Long intent.
it was, I remember reading about, thinking, what are they doing? This has nothing to do with safety and traffic flow. It was politics. And you can still, if you look, you can still see where it was painted. So I don't want to go get into that habit. I think the police department are the experts on where stop signs.
And I think by statute, it does fall on the head law enforcement officer of whatever jurisdiction you're talking about. And I agree with you that I think it should be on a safety concern why we put a stop sign up. I mean, if you put one up everywhere somebody wants one put up, it'll look like Highland View with a stop sign at every corner.
Yeah.
There's literally not an intersection in Highland View that does not have a stop sign on. And, I mean, we could probably pay the city's budget with the aluminum out there. Pretty ridiculous. So, I'll always bring to you what I think where the safety and the stats lead us in. It's just not there, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not on 7th Street either. I mean, I wouldn't even recommend speed bumps on 7th Street. I mean, there's just not a speeding problem.
All right, any more questions for the chief? All right, the city clerk, welcome back also.
Thank you, sir. It's nice to be here. You will see that we have grants task order in here and working on several other projects. Trying to stay ahead of the curve and keep some money coming in. Pages 44 through 51.
Well, we've got, we had the first Ferguson group, which are our grant writers. They've got basically a list here of their charges, task orders, and so on and so forth. So that's what we need to vote on today. We want them to handle these grants for us. It's going to cost us, of course, with any of them, but they seem to be fairly reasonable and very knowledgeable. We keep shooting up there amongst them, one of them will hit, and we'll and I think for this current year's out, we're gonna get some big grants here.
I hope so, Mayor. Staff has done a lot of work, and there's millions of dollars on the table that we've applied for. I can't tell you that we're gonna get $20 out of it, but we gave it a valued effort.
Right, right. So one of y'all would like to bring us up to speed what we need to approve, on this, Ferguson group. Go right ahead, please.
What you have before you is a task order. We had a discussion at our last meeting, talking about things from City Hall to the Washington gym bathrooms, to the sidewalks on mine at the ball fields. We have gotten in a legislative request, that's been taken care of, got those submitted last week for the Washington gym. Our representatives have those. Okay. City Hall complex, we started talking about that, but we're not there yet. We have got to develop a set of plans, we need to continue to work towards it, and they will help us get to that plateau for the submittal on the grant on it. The one that is of importance to us to consider today is the disaster recovery grants. Those are items that took substantial damage during Hurricane Michael. The things that we've identified that we think would qualify would be sidewalks on Monument Avenue that have been busted up after the hurricane, piping under the ball fields, and there may be something we missed. We've got tons of grants out there for other items, but these are two that right now we do not have any funding requests in for. With the piping under the ball fields, right now what we have is we have that NERDA grant that's on hold. They're waiting for a decision from us that are we going to apply for funding for the piping from some other source, or are we going to abandon the project altogether? So this is one avenue to look for funding if you want to replace the pipes under the ball field, or are we going to move in a different direction? That's the biggest one we need to make a decision on today, is a disaster recovery grant, the task order, and what do we want to apply for?
Well, the only thing we do with NERDA grants, dig a big pond there on, in that 16th Street area. I just don't, I think that's throwing money away. So, bottom line is, if they're not gonna let us work on this Depot Creek, watershed project that Commissioner Hoffman brought up, I think we just gonna have to abandon that. And, in my opinion, pipe under the ball field, I think that's a waste of money too. I think, if we need to have a little more long-range vision, ball fields there are pretty much gonna have to end up being a thing of the past, in my opinion. We need to move forward with making a nice sports complex for our citizens, our young children, and, if we keep that in front of us, it'll happen, but if we just keep putting bubble gum and Band-Aid and duct tape down there on 16th Street, that's all we're gonna ever have. So, it's workable right now, but go out for a grant, put pipe under there. I mean, if we move the Field of Dreams and get a nice complex out there, we can actually open up that drain system all the way through that area, which would help drainage all around the whole area. And also let us maintain the playground and all that for the children there. That wouldn't affect that. But I just think we need to think a little more long range. Even though it's going to cost us a lot of money, I think we're going to have to, some point in time, just go ahead and do it. Seem like places around us can get it done. We just can't seem to get it done. It just kind of gets pushed back. I'd like to see us go out to the sidewalks, but if you don't know any other disaster-related project, I'm kind of listening to you guys tell us something.
I think we've applied, I know we've been thinking.
No, I actually agree, Mayor. I think the best suited, grant would be the sidewalks on mine, because those things are fair.
We have millions of dollars that we've applied for, so we can't guarantee we're gonna get any of that money, but from lift stations to sewer lines to, police station, fire department, we've applied for it, you name it, we've applied for it, but, Centennial building.
Could we revisit the Centennial Building under this new grant proposal for, it obviously was affected by the hurricane. I mean, I was there in the middle of it, and water poured like a river from the ceiling onto the floors that are probably priceless. The air conditioning units were destroyed.
We have a grant in place now. I don't know if we're gonna get it. I think the hearings are at the end of the month.
27th and 28th will be
That's-
via
That's another one.
computers.
Ms. Pierce done a ton of work and got the application put in for another round. I think we've been denied how many times?
5 or 6.
So, but yes, sir, it is possible.
Can we go ahead and do that, and even though we've got this grant in?
Well, you gotta first make sure it's gonna qualify. And I think what the first thing they're gonna look at is that we've already placed the roof and all that good stuff on there, so it may or may not qualify, I'm not sure. We'd have to look at it, but it's possible.
But would that affect this task order that we're trying to vote on today?
Yes, sir, it would, because right now, that task order right now is talking about, the actual amount for the, two different, it's gonna be the same grant, but two different projects. It's gonna be for the sidewalks and for,
Piping.
piping.
Well, I would have thought there'd be more problems there, but we could go after, but,
We can try it, it's up to y'all. If y'all want us to plug in the Centennial, we'll have that discussion. If y'all wanna move forward on the Centennial building and the sidewalk,
I think we should.
we'll give it a valued
Let's
effort and see
do
what they tell us.
And turn him loose with that, I'm good with that. Anybody, you got any thoughts? I'm good with that. In the meantime, if something comes up we think about, I guess we could bring it up and let them go with that. Is there were deadlines on this?
Yes, end of February, so yes.
Okay, okay.
Sidewalks is not that big of a deal to put together.
Yeah.
And with Centennial building, potentially, if it qualifies, we probably could pull the information we have out already for the grants and biddles that we have.
I hadn't thought about, been focusing on the building itself, I hadn't thought about the infrastructure like the air conditioning. There's no heat out there now.
Well, I don't think we filed a claim at all on the flooring. And,
That's probably right.
I don't see how that flooring is wood, and,
Yeah.
it's not new wood, and it was in 3, 4, and 5 inches of water when we were giving out the, supplies.
Mhm.
Yeah, the insurance did include a portion of the flooring in the recovery, but only a section of it. I don't remember what size it was, but not the whole
Yeah,
thing,
I
no.
mean, if you can't match what's there, I mean, you got to replace the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Sound like a original request? If
Yep.
y'all give us a motion to approve the task order for those 2 items. We'll give them-
So is it my understanding we're taking out the piping at the ball field?
Well, that's
That's
what
the
I
way I-
like.
that's the way I-
That's what I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the task order now.
Okay, entertain one.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman made that. There's a second. Second, Commissioner Langston, all in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passes 4-0.
We don't have to make a decision today, but y'all brought up a point discussing the NERDA grant. We probably, the next agenda, we need to make a decision to tell the water management district and DEP what we want to do with that grant.
I'm ready to scrub it today, because I don't like somebody offering up all this assistance and talking about how great they were doing for the city of St. Joe. And then when the city of St. Joe doesn't want to follow them like a puppy, then they say, well, if you don't want to, it's like giving your kid a gift and telling them what they have to spend the money on that you gave them, you know? So I'm done with them.
Yeah, I'm not really happy with what we got. Well, you wanna make a motion to
I'll be glad to make it.
tell them where to.
The motion
I mean,
is
tell
that
them what to do with it, or.
we
what-
deny the approval of the grant based on their telling us how to spend the money. It was too specific. So I
Not much
don't
we
have
can
any
do with
problem.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't support digging a big, huge lake behind people's property that don't necessarily want a big lake. I don't agree with that. There was too many other good ideas. We even had a workshop, and some of the
Several.
citizens came and had great ideas. But if it didn't fit their narrow scope, then they didn't want to hear it.
So there's a motion on the floor to abandon the NERDA grant. There's a second to that? Second by Commissioner Langston.
Mayor, can we just emphasize this is for the school, for the, water quality portion, because we still have the stormwater master plan. We
Master
wanna
plan,
Right,
okay, all
right.
right, that's, you got that. Mr.
Yeah, and
Chairman.
if they would shift the money and let us spend all the money on stormwater, we could spend that money with no problem. But they don't wanna do that, they want us to just
Think
focus
about all the
on.
point affairs we got from all that stormwater affecting all,
Oh, yeah.
all that,
All the,
everything in the city.
all those separate
Drive down 98
stations, yeah,
sometimes.
we could have spent that easily and improved the water runoff, but they wanna focus on the water quality side of it. And yet we have a pristine bay, one of the few in the whole state of Florida. So, made no sense.
Okay. Motion second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. That'll take that off our city engineers list. Part of it. Anything else, Ms. City Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay. Any citizens to be heard? Ms. Beverly, we make it, you
Thank you,
okay
sir.
now?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Joe's here with the chamber, you got anything you'd like to discuss? We approved all outdoor events.
Well, if you've approved it, I've done all my work.
Yeah, you're done.
Thank you.
You're done. All right, discussion items by commissioners, I think I'm gonna start with Commissioner Lowry today.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Mr. Langston. Okay, Commissioner Hall.
Good to go, thank you.
Uh-oh, so now I've got to talk, I've got to.
It's on you.
Okay. I'd like, for us to, have on the next agenda to, I know we got into long discussion last week about naming things after people. And, I'd like for us to, consider, naming the, Third Street Promenade for, Bill Kennedy, our former, PSJRA, chairman that, I mean, for 20 years, he's had his finger and toes and everything else in the downtown Fort St. Joe. And I think it'd be a nice tribute to him. He worked on that project very hard. And, so I'd like to put that on the agenda for the next meeting. And, also, I'm gonna get back on my COVID-19 soapbox a little bit. I would like to see, have, Jim, and Mike bring the next meeting what it would cost us to pay, each city employee's 4 hours pay to get the vaccine. So if you go get COVID vaccine and you're an employee of the city, we'll pay you 4 hours. So it might take 2 anyway to go, but I just think, we need to incentivize our employees all we can. We can't, I mean, we could require them, but I don't think we want to do that. But I would like to incentivize them a little bit to the importance of getting that shot. I mean, in the long run, it's gonna help us. It'll save us money because they're not gonna be able to work for COVID anyway. But I'd like to bring that back on our first meeting in February and give us an idea what it costs and we'll vote on it. That's all I have. Nothing else, we'll stand adjourned.